Hello, and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. I've got a number of books I'd like to share with you this time, and some examples of how one thing leads to another. Last time I shared a book with you by Layne called Cider with Rosie, a wonderful account of his mother's feel for plants and planting things. That book was published by Morrow in the United States, and the title was The Edge of Day, Boyhood in the West of England. So there's some confusion there when you have one title in one place and another in another place. So just so you know, if you're looking for Cider with Rosie and you can't find it, check to see if you can get The Edge of Day by Layne. Also last time, I shared with you about a story by Mrs. Ewing called Our Field, and gave you a reference where you could find it. It's a Writer's Choice, a book called Writer's Choice. But it's also in the Brownies and Other Stories by Mrs. Ewing. It's the last story in the book. You know how you save the best to last sometimes? This is a book that I thought about when I was thinking about one of the titles, An Edwardian Lady's Diary, The King and Queens. It's poems by Eleanor Fargeron with her husband, Herbert. And what they did was they wrote a poem for every king and queen of England. And so you'll have Richard II, Henry, and it gives the date that they ascended to the throne. So you can see that Richard II was king for 22 years. And so that was always helpful, and I just use this book as a reference. Henry VIII, 1509. Edward VI, 1547. So that's 38 years. And then we get, of course, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, 1558, and she rules until James I, 1603. So there's 42 and maybe another 44, 45 years she was on the throne. And then, of course, we get George III, king during all those troubles with the American colonies, 1760. And he lived through all those troubles with the American colonies until George IV became king in 1820. So 60 years King of England. He was there when Cook did all his exploring. Victoria, 1837, and Edward VII. There's the Edwardian times. So 63 years. So she's got the record, I think, for the longest reign. Edward VII. He's got only 9 years, but that period from the first decade of the 1900s would be called the Edwardian period. Well, now wait a minute. Elizabeth II, 1952. Boy, she's got the record. 1952. Well, it's a handy resource. Eleanor Fargeron poems. Now those were poems about the characters. They're very clever, very cleverly done. I've shown you 2 volumes, and here's a 3rd volume, a different collection of poems, and it's divided into 4 sections with a little introductory section. And the introductory section is called Meeting Mary. And the sections are called Sing for Your Supper, Over the Garden Wall, Joan's Door, and Come Christmas. But I want to read you, I can't resist. The birds know. The birds know, and you know that I probably was going to want to read something there. The birds know. You can hear, they know. The eager birds at daybreak, though the morning is less gold than gray, and a cold wind still cuts the day, and skies still look like snow. The birds their course have begun. No weather now can stop it. None can hear them at the early hour and not foresee the lanes in flower or dream upon the sun. And the second short little poem is called Strawberries. Ripe, ripe strawberries, who'll buy strawberries? Buy my strawberries, red and sweet, then your child can have a treat, and I'll trudge home and rest my feet, and cry no more in the dusty street. Ripe, ripe strawberries, who'll buy strawberries? And that was a cry that I heard growing up. Dad driving the vehicle, maybe a truck, and son, maybe a teenager, following along, giving a cry for strawberries, ripe strawberries. And people would go out from their house and purchase strawberries, and nice memory for me. This is Martin Pippin in the Daisy Field. I started to say Dusty Field by Eleanor Fargeron. And this is an amazing collection of stories. It's a collection of stories. I mentioned she wrote lots of stories. There's some poems in them. There's little scripts, little dialogues for like plays. It's just a delightful collection of stories. Here's a full-length novel that she wrote called The Silver Curlew. Oxford Children's Library put this out. And at the back I noticed they have a list of 22 books there and a total of 56 books that they've published and are out. And among those books were a number that I've shown you. I haven't shown you the Queen Elizabeth story, but that's a great one. I showed you World's End Was Home by Nan Chauncey. I haven't shown you Darky and Company, which is a great one, or The Gauntlet by Ronald Welsh. Howard Spring did Darky and Company. But there's a lot of variety. I felt always comfortable looking at any of the books that Oxford put out in this series. The Gentle Falcon by Hilda Lewis is a neat story. These books by Rennie Gillot in here, and this book. And I thought, I'll go find where this book is to show you. It's not a book by Eleanor Fargeron. It's by Max Vogeli, and it's been translated. this is a wonderful story. There's 2 long passages in this story where things are so exciting that I read one passage to my class and asked them to do a drawing, and I read the second passage in that and asked them to do a drawing. Very interesting, gripping boys, girls. This glass slipper Eleanor Fargeron. It's her telling of the Cinderella story, and this put out by Oxford and then also published and put out in North America. The Little Book Room is a collection of stories, and my oldest son really enjoyed reading these, and he enjoyed a number of her books. She grew up in a childhood. There was a room we called the Little Book Room. True, every room in the house could have been called a book room, and this picture captures a little bit of that sense of stacks of books and things. So a wonderful collection, brilliantly illustrated, and stories in there like The Kind Farmer, The King and the Corn, the Girl Who Kissed the Peach Tree. And this is just another edition. This is the Oxford edition of it. And nice that they didn't change the title from English to American publisher. Kept the same title, The Little Book Room. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.